I just realized I was not streaming at all. So anybody who wasn't here, I need to get notes off of someone. Gentlemen, put away. Back to notes. I said back to notes. So, yeah. Good on. Second request. We've got now that I've started it, I'm going to immediately turn back to recording. So there's a variety of different types of cognitive functions. Memory being one of them. We're going to see a video on some of the other ones. And we're discussing ethically, we would look at all the different types of competence. So, quality of being capable of performing an allotted function, the quality or condition of being legally qualified, that's a legal definition, an ethical definition, the mental ability to distinguish right from wrong and to manage one's own affairs. Legally, the only one that matters is, can you tell right from wrong? Legally, if you have a mental illness, that does not excuse you from any crime you committed. It has to be a mental illness such that you cannot know what was right and wrong. If you know it was wrong, even if you're mentally ill, you are still guilty of that. Even if you had a condition that would make you act against, you are still guilty. It is, you have to have a guilty mind, and you have to have done the act. Mens rea means guilty mind. So the legal requirement is a lot lower than the ethical requirement. So types of cognitive, mental ability and understanding. Can they comprehend what they are talking about? Are you, stuck at an age of 2 years old in your head? Or can you comprehend the future? If I gave a young child, they were playing and they wanted to play with matches, and I'm like, here, matches and gasoline, it's a blast. We would not blame the child for the resulting inferno, but the person who gave them matches and gasoline, because they can't comprehend the consequences of their actions. So you can have cognitive competence. Can you predict the future? If X happens, Y will result. If I study, I will be better. If I take rowing, I will have lots of early mornings. This is why, if you rob a bank, and during that process, someone dies, not because you shot them, they just die by accident. Someone was panicked and they tripped and fell and hit their head. You were charged with murder. It's not an accident. Because if you robbed a bank, it is reasonable to predict that someone might die because you are doing something entirely unexpected. You are creating a dangerous situation and you could have reasonably foreseen that someone would die with that. That makes it murder. Yeah?
Well, I mean, if they die because they like a panic attack because you're robbing bank, that's like still your fault.
That's still your fault. That's exactly the reasoning in law. Yeah. And if you're robbing a bank and you didn't shoot someone, but your partner did, and you're like, we agreed we wouldn't shoot, too bad. You decided to rob a bank. You engaged in a course of action in which someone could have died. There's something called in law, called a one-punch homicide. You're in a bar, you get into a bar fight, and you hit someone right in the chest. There's a moment in your heartbeat that if you hit someone at just the right time, you can cause a cardiac arrest and they'll die on the spot. Now, it's unusual for that to happen, but there's a chance it will happen. So you were not charged with an accident if that happened. You're charged with murder. Because if you engage in a physical altercation with someone, you should be able to know that that might cause someone to die. And that happens every year. People are like, it was just a bar fight. Someone died. It's murder now, not manslaughter. Yep.
What if someone has a pre-existing condition and they know they're going to die at a certain moment and they choose to walk into the bank during the robbery and just flat out die on the floor?
Were they in a bar fight at the time?
No, but like, if I knew I was going to die in 5 minutes
Yeah.
and I saw a bank robbery happening, so I ran into the bank and died on the floor,
Yeah.
would the bank robber still be charged?
Probably, because who would know that? If things were different, they wouldn't be the same. If you have engaged in an act of deception, it would not be weird to think that some people might be deceived. So we have to have understanding, we have to have knowing consequences, and we have to have memory, which is what that particular clip was for. You need to be able to remember, even for a short period of time. His period of time varies from 7 seconds to 30 seconds. I thought, when I saw the piano in the first clip, I thought that one was going to show it. One of the things is you can actually hear his memory fail, because he's playing a piece, and he's reading, but at some point, he'll forget what he's playing and forget why, and that you could hear him sort of break, in which he stops kind of figuring out what he's doing, because he can't remember the moment. And he then all of a sudden has the moment of, this is the first moment I've ever been alive. Alive for the first time right now. Why am I at a piano? And has a little existential crisis every time. It is very cute, I think, how much he loves his wife, even with no memory. Every time she comes in, he's like, you are the greatest person in the world, and I've never seen you before. It's been ages. And she can literally just walk out and then walk back in again, and that happens again. It must get a little annoying.
Do you think he could dream?
I don't know. It's a good question. Question? Or were you just stretching for a moment? Question?
Do you know how does medical marijuana make your memory better or worse?
Worse.
It's like, worse. Because it'd be interesting to see, like, if he was on that. Like, I feel like you just have no memory later on.
There is some evidence to suggest that marijuana over a period of time can impair memory.
Yeah.
It's not huge. We're more worried about now, especially in adolescence, marijuana-induced psychosis, in which if you are already predisposed to a particular mental illness, manic depression, psychosis, marijuana increases the risk that you'll experience an event that makes that happen. And if you manage to get to your 20s without that happening, you might actually never experience it. There's enough places with legalized marijuana, we're noticing these types of effects. So in the province of British Columbia, it is, a reminder, illegal for you to use marijuana in any particular way. But it is legal once you're 19. On a biochemical basis, if you are female at birth, I would highly recommend that you at least wait until you're 21. And if you were born male at birth, I would highly recommend you wait until you're 24 or 25. Because that is how long it takes for your brain to stop developing and the risk to go down. And those two ages, this is why, how old do you have to be to rent a car?
25.
25. The reason they pick that is they can't discriminate by gender. Accident rates, if you are female at birth, drop at 21. And if you're male at birth, they drop at 25. That's when the brain's fully developed and you're less likely to take stupid risks. Males literally take longer to develop their brain, and if you're wondering why they're acting so stupid, well, that's why. Emotive. So we have cognitive. Can you actually understand? As in, you know what the concepts are. You understand pain matches fire. But then can you predict the consequences, like I'm on fire, hurt, bad in future? And then can you remember for the next time? Can you learn from your mistakes? Can you remember things? This is just sort of logic. This is, do you have feelings that are required for you to think? Yes?
Would the dude with no memory be capable of feeling tired? Because like if he's like a 2 hours, if he's like a 5-minute nap, but it's like the first time he's experiencing waking up, would he just trick his brain, and would his brain just think that he's had like an infinite amount of sleep?
Your feeling of tiredness is based on molecules in your bloodstream, so it is an actual physical response. So when you're awake, you are releasing chemicals, and when those chemicals build up, you feel tired.
I'm very tired. I kind of want to take it now.
Yeah. Caffeine will attach to the receptors that those things attach to, but they don't attach and activate, they attach and block it. So caffeine doesn't give you energy. It fools you into thinking you're not tired. But your body's smart, so it'll just make more receptors. And now you're addicted to caffeine, because now you need caffeine just to feel normal, not just to feel awake. Which is why I'm on now like 3 cups instead of which is one. State of mind, feelings. This would be you cannot reach reasoned decisions because of emotional pressures. So if you are clinically depressed, you would be considered incompetent. You have a misfunction with your emotions to the degree that you're not making logical decisions. So this isn't like, it would be like the House episode where the lady was in for getting her heart, and he said, you know, anything that would take her off the transplant list. Is she this? Is she depressed? Is she that? And House was like, well, she's feeling a little blue, but she just found out she needed a new heart. Just finding out you need a new heart isn't clinical depression. That's just sad. Clinical depression has criteria with it, and physical and mental side effects, I guess would be the best way of saying it, that make it very difficult to make decisions. Also, I should make a point, because I don't think this is often appreciated. Emotions are, I don't know why, I should have underlined required, not are required for decisions. So if you have a case of someone who has no emotions, they are also mentally incompetent. We know that. Our knowledge of the functions of the brain are based on strokes. If you have a stroke in your brain, it damages that part, and then we see what it doesn't work. It's a bit like if you're an alien race and you came here to the planet and you want to know how cars work, and you figured out how cars worked by observing the ones that engaged in a traffic accident and saw what didn't work once you put it back on the road. Like, oh, after the traffic accident, the back tire was ripped off, and now the car always turns to the right. So I guess the back tire is responsible for turning to the left. And we make a lot of mistakes like that because we're observing what doesn't work, and parts of the brain can have lots of different effects when they're gone, but slowly over time, we've built up a battery of observations about what parts do what based on what happens when they don't work. There is a gentleman who had a really bad car accident to the point that his brain, part of a blood vessel, ripped out, and they were very certain he had severe brain damage because the car sort of sprayed and destroyed a section of his brain. Got him blood thinners right away, relieved the pressure on his brain by cutting out parts of his skull, drained, he got better. He woke up from like a 5-month coma and was fine. He was a really good accountant that worked for very complex firms. He was the head of their accounting department, and his family was very worried because if he can't do math anymore, he can't do his job. His math was fine. No mistake whatsoever, walk, talk, it was like nothing was wrong with him. They're like, no problems. Wife comes back a few months later and they're like, you need to re-examine my husband. There's something seriously wrong with him. And what it seemed to have done is that his emotional processing center was gone. He didn't really feel emotions anymore in any particular sense. All he was left with was the logical part of his brain. And when we see things without emotions in media, we tend to think that if you didn't have emotions, you'd make better decisions. But if you don't have emotions, you don't have a reason to make a decision. So he's the CFO of the company, chief financial officer. He has to sign a lot of contracts. So he'd sit there with a contract he has to sign. And he'd be like, it's traditional to sign a contract with a black pen. But the blue pen has less ink. So maybe I should use that one to use it up first. That would be more environmental. On the other hand, red would be more festive, and it is near Christmas. But you don't really sign contracts in red, and just inane stuff like that. He couldn't make a decision. He would just be paralyzed, and he would do whatever anybody else told him to do. He was not a safe person to be trusted with secrets anymore because he didn't really care. There's no emotions there. He was eventually fired from his company. His wife eventually divorced him. He ended up doing accounting for some mob firm, the last anybody had heard from him, because he would take orders and was still good at math, and so he ended up there. I don't really know what happened to him after that. Investigators in that little documentary didn't know either, but he was very incompetent because he didn't have emotions. So it's not just extreme emotions can make you incompetent, not having emotions can make you incompetent as well.
Does that mean that guy didn't have like fear? So like he would just like
Yeah,
did not have
he didn't feel emotions. We've probably heard of people who don't feel empathy or psychopaths in like movies. They feel emotions. They're just very self-centered. They don't care what you're feeling. They still feel emotions, but he didn't feel anything. So yes, a man without fear, like
So you could be like Batman, basically.
Yeah.
yeah.
it'd be
Except why would he be like Batman? He wouldn't care. The wonder is like, why did he stay alive at all? Hunger is an emotion.
That's ridiculous that his wife divorced him. That's cruel.
Not really.
I think
The streets for real.
after a long period of time, there is a point in which you have to feel for the person who's just basically trying to take care of someone who can give nothing back. It's just work on one side.
Yeah, he doesn't even like.
He doesn't like her anymore.
Yeah.
Well, that's like having a disabled child. Like, you shouldn't abandon them just because they're.
True.
But at the same time, it's like he can't.
But it's like he doesn't
really
even
help
do.
it.
He doesn't
Yeah.
even like give her anything.
Yeah.
You gotta
And
look out for yourself.
to take your example, because there's a very strong societal expectation. You have a child born, and the child has severe needs, and you will be taking care of this child for the rest of your life. Should that fall only on that family? Because it's not their fault that that happened. Should there not be any state, like government support for that? There's very little support for mental health issues in terms of funding. Like I can go into a broken bones in the local hospital, that'll get fixed. But if I don't have any memory, they're gonna be like, I don't know. Because there's no fix for that. And there's no special home that Canada's created for people with severe mental illness. We got rid of those in the 50s and 60s.
No more insane asylum.
There's no more insane asylums. And they weren't good in a lot of ways, but they also provided treatment on a daily basis. We got rid of them for cost-cutting reasons, not because they were bad. Okay, thank you for staying focused. Next day we'll do a little bit, since we're doing the quiz on Saturday, we'll do a little bit of the film chunk on Thursday. Thank you.
We just need to call the airline.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep, doctor patient and informed consent from much earlier.
I just want to make sure I have the right stuff. What do you do like types of informing?
Yeah, that's exactly it.